I'm all about change. My team will tell you if we're not changing, something's wrong. And there's a tendency for new people to come in and say, oh, I got to change place, change. You need to take time to really understand the organization today, the people, the culture, and so forth, before embarking on, well, gee, we're going to change these things.
Hello and welcome to Drive, the show where we join Chuck in conversations about moving forward. And today we're talking about what does it take to have a good board. And Chuck, thanks for joining me again.
Looking forward to it. This will be a great conversation.
Well, here we are in beautiful downtown Raleigh, the capital city in the middle of the triangle.
Yeah.
And
Amazing
Chuck,
place.
oh, I'll tell you, a lot of important decisions have been made here.
Yeah.
A lot of key decisions. And that brings us to today's topic about boards.
Yeah.
Set the platform for us. What is a board and what's it accountable for?
So let me talk about it at Coastal. We have 300,000 owners. Every member is an owner at Coastal. I can't work for 300,000 owners. As required by law, in our case, they have to elect a board of directors. And they are accountable for the institution. And so one of their main roles is to hire a CEO. But their main function is to represent the interest of those 300,000 people. And so they govern the organization, they set the policies, they set the strategies. Obviously, my team and I are involved in designing strategies and plans and so forth, but at the end of the day, the decision to approve or not those is the board's. And so they are the tool for the members to determine the direction of the organization.
So Chuck, during that time that you were on the National Credit Foundation board, what were some of the initiatives that you as the board chair were able just to look back on and say, we did some good work there?
Well, you know, there's a great story there. So when I first got on this board at a credit union in Denver, the chairman of the board was hosting the board meeting. I didn't know what I was getting into. And so we get to the financials, and this national foundation has a whopping $500,000 coming through there every year to do national philanthropic work with. I'm like, I don't get it. What are you going to do with $500,000 when you're trying to serve a national need? And so, you know, I'm on there for a year or two. Long story short, I had this idea that what if we created an investment fund that credit unions could invest in? The credit union got half the earnings and the foundation got half the earnings. But that worked. And short-term interest rates were, 6% at the time. So credit union get 3%. Foundation get 3%. Maybe that's a way to raise money. And I found a group of people. I found the executive director of the foundation got behind it. Make a long story short, we went and built it. And I remember our goal was $50 million, modest. And that took close to a year to raise $50 million. But bear in mind, now you got $1.5 million going to this national foundation where we started. So it tripled, quadrupled the money. Well, over a period of about 5 years, it grew to $450 million. And over a period of 10 years, generated $100 million for credit and philanthropy through the national and state credit and foundations around the country.
You also had some initiatives around that period for the Latino community,
Yeah.
for Real Solutions, BizKids, affordable housing. Where did all that come from?
Well, it started with the money. You know, when you now have a $10 million pool of resources, you can tackle bigger problems. And so BizKids was all about teaching finance to students through a public television show. What's cool about credit unions, we're not for-profit companies, but we're not nonprofit. We're not for profit. And so there's this natural alignment between credit unions and nonprofits and philanthropy and, you know, how do we use our resources and capabilities to improve communities? And that's where the National Foundation found this intersection of interest and a fundraising idea that was pretty successful.
It sounds like it. During that time, Chuck, did you have a mentor that was speaking into your life as you were going through your board cycle of member and quiet for 2 years to all of a sudden starting to get experience to the board chair itself? That was probably 2000, somewhere in there, that you became the board chair?
Yeah, it's probably 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. I have mentors all over the credit union movement. I learned from each of them. The executive director at the time of the National Foundation really helped me develop the skills to take what some thought were pretty wacky ideas and socialize them in a way that people could get on board with. I would say, she had a pretty big impact on me and how to take what at the time was a set of business skills and apply it to broader social needs, social problems, community needs and the like. And that was a connection I really didn't have before the time I spent on that board.
Chuck, one of the volunteer boards that you work closely with is the one in your backyard. It's Coastal. What is that like?
It's amazing. Credit unions are built on a group of people. Coastal was started by a group of IBM employees, a bunch of people that put $5 in a hat, went to the federal regulator and said, we want to start a credit union here. And they volunteered their time and effort and energy to start it and get it going. And that's how every credit union starts. And they believe in what we do. They believe it's important to the membership. And our board, I'll tell you, is incredibly passionate about why we exist, what we're trying to do, and our role in helping improve the financial lives of our members. And that's part of to me, the secret sauce of why credit unions are successful. They're not in it for anything else other than the satisfaction of knowing they're doing it to improve lives of members.
If you could coach a new board chairperson, how would you encourage them to measure success?
Through the eyes of the member. If you're a credit union, you got to measure success through the eyes of the members. There's certainly regulators and others that are going to measure success through financial performance and so forth, but you got to measure it through the impact you're having on members. We take it a step further, and we measure it also through the impact we can have on the community. And so I was so engaged in the community, give a lot of money to important community initiatives. If you're going to take over a volunteer board and the only objective is make more money, people don't buy into that. And so it's about the purpose of the organization and really being committed to that.
Chuck, you have always championed that CEOs need to go serve on boards. Why is that?
You need to see the other side. You need to appreciate the role of a director. I perform for Coastal a different role than the board. We have to be aligned, we have to be together. I manage the organization, particularly day to day. They set direction, they set policy, they set risk tolerance. And so it's important I think for CEOs to understand how effective boards work and how important the relationship is between the CEO and the chair. I continue to say part of the success of Coastal over many, 55 years has been the relationship between the CEO and the board chair and the board as a whole over that period. You don't get the kind of success Coastal's had if you don't have those two groups working hand in hand.
What are some of the tactics that you've used as a board chair to ensure the board was successful?
I call each of the members of the board at least once a year. Tell me what you're not telling us at the board meeting. Give me straight from you how you think our CEO's performing. It's interesting, credit union people are nice people, universally. Well, it can be difficult to express critical views. I may in a board meeting feel like everybody say, yeah, CEO's doing a great job, when three of them are thinking, yeah, but I got a problem with this. I'm concerned about the way this is being handled and so forth. And so it's important for the chairman to have that kind of relationship with each director and give them a chance to be heard. I think the other thing is, one of the most important roles of the chair is run an effective meeting. The board chair owns that meeting and is the one that's responsible for ensuring that one director doesn't dominate, others are not wallflowers, and that there's healthy dialogue on whatever the matters are during the course of a meeting. That's the role of the board chair. And so it's interesting, as I've chaired these boards, when I go into a board meeting, I'm not thinking about voting. I'm focused on how do I facilitate a process that will ensure everybody's questions are answered and they all have the best opportunity to vote based on the information they have. It's a pretty big difference and shift between being a director and being the chairman, where you're the coordinator of those meetings.
What do you think it is that causes a board as a unit to just start to fall apart, to disintegrate in its effectiveness?
I think it starts with the board chair. I mean, the board chair is responsible for keeping a board together. That doesn't mean the chair has to make sure they all agree, right? But that there's respect, there's willingness to listen to each one, and willing to make decisions that are best interests of the organization. I think more often than not, it's when the chair is not able to cause that to happen, and you get factions that develop, and sometimes it's unavoidable. Boards and management have to set strategy in a direction, and there are times when everybody on the board may not agree with it, and so that's when board, chairs of boards have to try to navigate through that, because you don't want multiple factions on a board trying to pull it in different directions.
How do you go about recruiting new board members?
I think a lot of it is they have to do it. We have a nominating committee, which the board, which the chair appoints. And our directors are responsible for looking around the marketplace, their peers, their friends, contacts they have, to try to identify folks who may be suitable board members, aligned with our interests, and more importantly, be willing to put in the work. Being on a board is work. For a typical director that's putting in the work, it's a couple hundred hours a year. And there's certainly, I can point people in their direction. I can connect people I know that I think might be great directors to them. But at the end of the day, that's the one thing kind of off limit. I don't pick the board. I have one vote like all the other 300,000 members, but in my, in the public company world, a lot of board officers, chairs are picked by the CEO, which to me is somewhat of conflict of interest. And so they have to sustain themselves through their own work.
Well, we've talked about how hard it is to find good talent as employees. How hard is it now to find good talent as board members?
It's getting harder and harder. Somebody described it to me a few years ago like this, and I went, "Yep, you got your finger on it." The members who formed Coastal, their volunteer model was, I get on a board and I do it forever. I'll do it for 30 years. Well, my generation comes along. I'm not going to sit on the board for 30, 40 years. 9 years is about the limit. And I've been on boards, I've gotten on it, I've done what I went on there to do, and I'm got off in one term, 3 years. My generation is not about doing it for 10, 20, 30 years. It's about getting involved, making a difference, learning something, and go do something. Today's generation, I want to volunteer to do something this afternoon for 2 hours. And then maybe next week I'll do something else for 2 hours. The idea of I'm gonna get on this board and I'm gonna go to a meeting every month. It's gonna take 2 or 3 or 4 hours, and I'm gonna devote 200 hours a year to this thing is just not in their wheelhouse. And so it is getting, I think, more and more difficult for organizations who depend on volunteer boards to find good, talented, smart people willing to put the work in and put the time in.
What's your moment where you're most proud of your board service?
Oh, I think it's got to be the outcome of my time on the National Credit Union Foundation Board and this Community Investment Fund, which is what we call the program credit unions invested in, and knowing that generated $100 million over 10 years that went to Latino Credit Union, Biz Kids, and all kinds of other great work here in North Carolina and around the country. I think that's the best piece of work I may have done in my career. It was innovative, it was out of the box, people thought I was nuts. But again, you get the right people, group of people together that believe in it, that are willing to put in the work, you can get it done.
Chuck, thanks for sharing that. Our next question is going to come from a special guest.
No, I don't like surprises.
Chuck, I truly believe that our relationship has been instrumental to the success of Coastal. What advice do you have for me, for all of us, as we prepare to build our relationship with the next CEO?
It's all about respect. It's about transparency. It's about engaging with one another. And it's about, the board chair and the CEO got to form a partnership. That, Joan is an incredibly special person to me. I've worked alongside of her now as CEO for 10 years. And we've seen great times and tough times and fun times and sad times, but it's been this incredible partnership between the two of us. So Joan, I hope you continue to be chair for many more years. Keep doing what you're doing, because the relationship we've got has been pretty special and pretty instrumental in Coastal's success during my time as CEO. It's about the people. It is all about the people and the relationships and facilitating the relationship between the leadership team and the board. And that's where the chair and the CEO make it happen.
From your experience working with Joan, what would you tell the new CEO would be his or her key to success?
Be transparent. Listen. Get to know her, get to know the board, get to know Coastal's history and culture. Change, I'm all about change. My team will tell you if we're not changing, something's wrong. And there's a tendency for new people to come in, or new CEOs to come in and say, I got to change plays, change. You need to take time to really understand the organization today, the people, the culture, and so forth, before embarking on, we're going to change these things. And that's not to say I built the perfect organization. There's a ton of room for improvement and opportunities, but do it smartly.
All right, well, Chuck, this has been an informative session. I want to jump now to the lightning round. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
All right, quick answers to quick questions. What is the longest board meeting you ever attended?
Probably 8 hours.
8 hours. If you could be on any board in the world, what board would you be on?
Probably United Way Worldwide.
Why?
Because the impact they can have on those less fortunate than me around the country.
What do you think your future holds in terms of board service?
I hope it's a part of it. I think the world needs great boards, particularly in the, there's all kinds of credit union organizations. I will say this, I have no intentions of ever getting on Coastal's board. It's not fair in any organization for the CEO to now be the chair of the organization they just left. But there are opportunities. I'm going to stay connected to the credit union movement. And if that means there's opportunity to serve on other boards around the movement, I'm open to it. I believe in the power of credit unions, and this movement we're part of has to thrive going forward.
Chuck, what was your favorite day on a board?
Back when I was on the National Foundation Board and my time was kind of coming to an end, I was given an award that had a monetary award attached to it. And I think the best, coolest part was to give it back to them and say, thank you for the recognition, but the money belongs to you.
That's great. Well, Chuck, thanks for all the insight, all the gold that you shared today from your past, and helping to lead futures into what's next.
Thanks, Alan.
All right. Well, friends, we'll see you on the next edition of Drive.